Alencia, I think we can all look at this and sort of understand the origins of this agenda that comes about a month out from midterms. They thought they knew what their message was going to be into midterms. They were just going to continually slam Democrats over the state of the economy. The economy is now in a different spot. They can't run on that message. Voters have completely backswung on this question of Roe. And so now they went to a room and they workshopped what they had. And this is what they came up with, and it is predictably thin. I wonder how you think it's going to land with voters.
Look, it's very thin, and they are grasping for straws because, like you said, they can't hit President Biden and Democrats on the economy. The conversation around abortion has actually been helping Democrats among women voters, and young people are galvanized around the issue as well. And so now they're grasping for straws for a message to resonate that isn't so stuck on Donald Trump, because that message is extremely extreme. And yet they're trying to speak to their base to get them to come out in some of these really close races. I mean, the Republican leader was in Pennsylvania, where there's a tight Senate race, and he knew that he had to go there in order to hopefully get their candidate some steam in that election. Now, you will see Democrats pushing back on this, but I think this is giving us more of a strategy, more of a message to continue in these 45 days to the midterms.
Dahlia, in an opinion piece in the Washington Post, argues, quote, to a greater degree than expected in June, which, remind you, is not that long ago, Republicans are finding themselves divided on how far their abortion laws should go. It's true that in more than a dozen conservative states, abortion is now illegal, even for rape and incest victims. But nonetheless, there has been a dramatic shift. It is telling, Dahlia, not surprising, but telling, that the national abortion ban did not make it into this policy agenda.
I mean, this is, I know the cliche is a cliche, but it's, the dog has caught the car. And a lot of people are having to make very, very quick decisions on how extreme they want to be. I find it fascinating that in Arizona, where a judge just reinstated a law that's almost 150 years old, that has no exception for rape and incest, no exceptions for organ failure of the mother, that you have different people in government taking different positions, saying this is great, no, this is less great, we want the 15-week ban. They can't even agree as amongst themselves how radical they want to be. And I think it's precisely for the reasons you both just laid out. Everybody hates these laws. These kind of no exceptions laws have very, very few supporters. And so the folks who are pressing harder on those are really alienating even members of their own party.
Dahlia, your book is just so rich and so dense, and so I promise we'll sort of get to the Trump piece in our next segment. But as it relates to this conversation about reproductive rights, about holding electeds accountable, where do you see women factoring in based on the role that they have played to date?
I mean, I think the short answer is that there's a reason the last couple of chapters of this book are about gerrymandering. They're about structural problems. I think a lot of women looked around after June, when Roe was, essentially wiped off the books by a six-justice kind of juristocracy. And I think they figured, how is it that my voice is not being heard in this? Why am I completely unable to effectuate my will? Why is 70-80% of the population not able to? And I think they're going to show that they're very angry by voting, not just in the federal elections, but in state and local elections.
So, Alencia, McCarthy also sort of glossed over the GOP's mission to make the ballot less accessible for voters in the name of combating, quote unquote, election fraud that does not exist, highlighting the fact a large portion of the Republican Party continues to perpetuate the big lie. You saw the group that was with McCarthy, right? They sort of wanted to present where this big tent, there were election deniers on that stage. I mean, they're trying to, as I often say, have their Trump and eat it too, right? To make a nod to these folks who are not living in reality, to continue to perpetuate this big lie, while also not exactly putting it front and center of the party's overall platform.
Yeah, Yeah, they're using these scare tactics, these fear mongering, that literally it is the only thing that they can use right now to kind of scare people to the polls, which is actually a very desperate strategy. If you have to scare people to come and vote for you, what does that actually say about your party and your values and your principles? And what does it have to say about a party that likes to talk about the Constitution and protecting it, but they are the ones that are directly attacking our freedom to vote, our freedom to make decisions about our bodies, our freedom of speech? And so I think what we're seeing is that voters are actually able to see through this, right? Those independent voters, those moderate voters who could be the swing voters, the key voters in some of these very tight races, they will actually pay attention to what's happening here. And some of these issues that the Republican Party is extremely extreme on, such as abortion care, voting rights, all of these issues will persuade them to potentially not vote for these candidates.